guys, and welcome back to my channel for another midweek mystery video. This week's mystery is going to be on Jonbenet Ramsey, which I'm sure you've all heard of. However, I mentioned it to a friend the other day and she was like, what's that? I've never heard of it. So maybe not everyone knows about it, but I thought it was a more well-known mystery. I think it is. As a general rule, I do prefer doing lesser known mysteries on my channel just because I find them more interesting. I like to learn things. However, the lesser known mysteries aren't the ones that get requested constantly. This video has been requested so much, so I am going to try and keep a good level between sort of the lesser known and the more high profile mysteries. But I figured it's time I do this one because the amount of people have had comments telling me to do this is crazy. So also, I do just want to preface this video by saying please be kind and considerate and not just rude in the comments. I know my regular viewers are lovely, I love you all, but the more well-known mysteries seem to attract a lot of really rude people into my comment section, which is something I've never really had to deal with on my channel before. Honestly, go back, read through the comments on my Madeleine McCann video. I've deleted the most mean ones, but I've left up some. I got called dumb more times in that video than I have done on my entire life. Like, literally, it's ridiculous. People are so rude. The reason I do these mysteries, the reason they are so interesting, is that nobody knows the answer. A lot of people on my Madeleine McCann videos seem to think that they know the answer, therefore I'm dumb for not saying exactly what happened to Madeleine, even though that isn't what happened to Madeleine, because nobody knows, because it's a mystery. Sorry, that's a little bit of a ramble and a rant. Apparently I say rant wrong, but it's rant. A ramble and a rant. To start that video off. Anyway, I'm going to get into the mystery now. So Jonbenet Ramsey was the youngest child of Patsy and John Ramsey, but she lived in Boulder, Colorado with her family, so her parents and her older brother Burke, who was 9 years old. So Jonbenet was born on the 6th of August 1990, so when she disappeared on Christmas Day, December 25th in 1996, she was just 6 years old. So this case became an absolutely huge media sensation. The main reason it caught the headlines so much was that Jonbenet was actually a child beauty queen. She did a lot of pageants, she was well decorated in the pageant world. She was the daughter of a pageant queen. Patsy Ramsey was a pageant queen back in her day. So I think that just really caught people's attention. Like I said, on the night of 25th of December 1996, Jonbenet Ramsey goes missing. Her mother Patsy wakes up in the night and goes downstairs and she discovers a ransom note on the back staircase of the house. The ransom note was 2.5 pages long. I'm not going to read it out for you because that is a long ransom note. I will link it down below if you want to go read it for yourself. Go read it. It's very strangely worded. It's sort of like, it doesn't flow very well, I find. It's just a very strangely written letter. But the basic gist of the ransom note was that Jonbenet had been kidnapped, she was being held hostage, and they wanted a $118,000 ransom, which is a very specific number. So that $118,000 number is actually very, very close to the amount that John Ramsey received as a bonus for his job earlier in the year. Despite specific instructions in the ransom note to not contact family or friends, Patsy Ramsey, of course, called the police about her daughter missing at 5:52 AM. So 2 police officers literally arrived within 3 minutes of the call. They did like a basic search of the house but found no signs of forced entry or a break-in. John Ramsey put forward arrangements to pay the ransom, and a forensics team was dispatched to the house pretty much immediately. Now, because Jonbenet's disappearance was assumed to be a kidnapping from the letter, the house wasn't dealt with in a way that I would do, say it was a murder. So only Jonbenet's bedroom was cordoned off for clues, and the house wasn't really thoroughly searched just because they assumed Jonbenet wasn't in the house. However, if you know the story of Jonbenet, you'll know that this wasn't the case. So at 1 PM, a good few hours after Jonbenet was discovered to be missing, a detective, Linda Arndt, asked Fleet White, who was a friend of the Ramseys in the house at the time, and John Ramsey to search the house, see if they could see anything out of place. Now, they actually started their search in the basement, which is where John Ramsey found his daughter's body. Of course, he picked her up. I think he first took her to the kitchen and laid her down there, and then later on he picked her up again and took her to the lounge. So there's lots of opportunities there for evidence to be displaced, fingerprints, forensics could go wrong. It would have probably been better to leave his daughter there, but if he's found his daughter dead in the basement, he's going to pick her up, I suppose. So personally, I have seen Jonbenet's autopsy photos. They're quite easy to find on the internet if you want to see them. I did consider placing them in this video, but I don't think that's something everyone wants to see. I don't know if everyone has the stomach to see 6-year-old girls' autopsy photos, to be honest. It wasn't a good sight, I'm not gonna lie, but I'll just tell you what her body looked like. So duct tape covered her mouth, there was a nylon cord found wrapped around her neck and her wrists, her torso was covered by a white blanket, and Patsy actually stated that she wasn't wearing the same clothes as when she put her to bed. When Jonbenet was found, she was wearing white long johns and just some underwear. So pretty quickly, this investigation turned from a kidnapping to a potential homicide. Autopsy was obviously done on Jonbenet's body, and it revealed that Jonbenet was killed by strangulation and a skull fracture. So the official cause of death was stated in the autopsy to be asphyxia by strangulation associated with craniocerebral trauma. No sign of rape, which is horrible to think about on any human ever, let alone on a 6-year-old girl. However, sexual assault couldn't be ruled out at this point, and this is when her death was officially ruled to be a homicide. So a garrote, which is basically like a ligature, like a handheld ligature of something used to like tighten something around the neck to strangle someone. It was made from a nylon cord, which is what I said she had around her neck when her body was found, and the broken handle of a paintbrush. So basically imagine the nylon cords wrapped around the paintbrush, and the paintbrush is twisted so it's getting tighter and tighter around the neck. The paintbrush was actually a paintbrush from inside the house. It was Patsy Ramsey's. It was, I think, one of her just like DIY painting brushes, just a standard brush. It was actually found, I think, in 3 pieces, correct me if I'm wrong there. Just one of the pieces was used to tighten this garrote around Jonbenet's neck. It was actually very widely thought at the time that Jonbenet was first hit with something along the lines of a baseball bat, something sturdy and strong like that, and then she was strangled afterwards, maybe to cover up the fact that she had been hit with this, because she did have these 2 major things that happened to her. She'd been beaten and then strangled. I think somebody just really wanted to make sure that this little girl was dead. So bear in mind this happened in 1996. In December 2003, forensic investigators actually managed to extract a DNA sample from Jonbenet's underwear. So obviously the DNA profile was analysed and it was confirmed that it did belong to a male, and the DNA was submitted to, what's it called, the Combined Data Index System, or CODIS, which contains more than 1.6 million profiles. However, there was no match. I'm not entirely sure how true this next point is, but I'm gonna say it anyway, but I don't want to say this is 100% true when I couldn't find too many sources that confirmed it. In October 2016, so literally just last year, new forensic analysis uncovered that the original DNA actually contained markers from 2 different people. However, when it contains markers, that's not enough to confirm that it was from a DNA from one whole person. Do you know what I mean? It's just like a tiny little marker. Only 1 full DNA print was able to be extracted. There was just markers from 2 different people. Now the investigation into this one was a difficult one and a controversial one. There was basically 2 sides to this investigation. One of the sides was the Ramseys did it, and one of the sides was an intruder did it. It is very widely believed that the Ramseys had something to do with their daughter's death. However, I'll get to this later. There's more to that, I suppose. But I personally find it very difficult to believe that parents could ever harm their children. I know it happens, obviously. I said the same thing in my Madeleine McCann case. But it's just a horrible thing to think about. So I'm always inclined to believe that it wasn't the parents. I think I'm just too nice and I want to believe the best in people. Again, this is an unsolved crime. Nobody knows what happened to Jonbenet. However, the Boulder Police Department actually originally focused almost exclusively on the Ramsey family as suspects. Which obviously that's their prerogative to do. They're the police. I'm sure they know a lot more than any of us do. But I do believe that they didn't look into the intruder theory aspect of the case as much as they probably should have, to be honest. However, by October 1997, I say that they actually had over 1,600 people in the case index. So that's not 1,600 suspects, but 1,600 people who could have a connection to the case. So Lou Smith was a detective in this case. He was actually in retirement and he came out just for this case. He presented the Boulder Police Department with evidence that it wasn't the Ramseys that committed this crime. He actually came at them with 437 pieces of evidence, and he concluded at the end of his presentation to the police, whatever it was, that it wasn't the Ramseys. However, this was totally unsuccessful in changing the police department's belief that the Ramseys had something to do with Jonbenet's death. And apparently there was just a lot of animosity between the DA's office and the police. I think Lou Smith was from the DA's office and they held very different beliefs to the police at this time. And this is a point that I think a lot of people don't know about this case, but on the 15th of September 1998, a grand jury was convened to consider indicting the Ramseys, and after all the evidence was presented to them in 1999, the grand jury returned a true bill to charge the Ramseys with placing a child at risk in a way that led to her death, and also with obstructing the investigation of a murder. However, Boulder County District Attorney Alex Hunter didn't go on to charge the Ramseys with anything because he didn't believe that it would hold up beyond a reasonable doubt in court. So there's a lot of back and forward on this case. Did the Ramseys do it? Didn't they? As of September 2016, this case continues to be an active homicide case. So here I'm going to come at you with the two most likely theories in this case. The first one I'm going to talk about is the intruder theory. So that Lou Smith that I mentioned earlier concluded that it was most likely that an intruder had come in and killed Jonbenet. And this is backed up by a lot of points. He theorised that the intruder had broken in through a broken window in the basement, which is why Jonbenet's body was found in the basement. He theorised that the intruder stunned Jonbenet with a stun gun in her bedroom before taking her down to the basement. That's when Jonbenet was killed and the ransom note was left. Now this is where it doesn't make much sense to me. If the intruder were to kill Jonbenet in the basement, why would they leave her body down there? Because it's most likely that Jonbenet is going to get found before a ransom is given. However, there had been over 100 burglaries in the Ramseys neighbourhood in the previous month, which is a lot, and there were 38 registered sex offenders living within a 2-mile radius. Another thing that points towards the intruder theory is the foreign male DNA found on her underwear, and the fact that there were actually footprints found in the basement. The footprints were proven to belong to a high-tech work boot sort of thing. And these boots weren't the Ramseys, they didn't belong to the Ramseys. I don't even think they were the same size as anyone in the Ramsey house. So for me, I think that is a big point that does point towards an intruder being in the house. A lot of people do think the police didn't look into this as aggressively as they should have done. I think the police were very intent on it being the Ramseys, and like I said, it could have been. That is what I'm going to talk about next. The police have a lot of valid reasons to believe there was a member of the family that had committed this crime. From their point of view, they could see no signs of forced entry or a break-in. They saw evidence of a crime scene being staged, particularly in the ransom note. The ransom note was compared to John and Patsy's handwriting. Whereas John was completely ruled out, it definitely wasn't him that wrote it. It was actually proven to be inconclusive as to whether it was Patsy Ramsey's handwriting. Apparently there are a lot of similarities between Patsy's writing and the writing found on the ransom note, but they couldn't say for certain, so it was said to be inconclusive. The ransom note was actually written with paper and pen from inside the house, and like I said, this is a 2.5-page ransom note. For somebody to be in the house long enough to write a note that long and not be discovered or heard is very unlikely. The pen that wrote the ransom note was actually placed back into the pot where Patsy Ramsey kept all of her pens, which I don't know if an intruder's in the house, would they want to take the time to place the pen back in the pot? Would they care that much? They've just killed their daughter. And to be honest, in the investigation that followed Jonbenet's death, the Ramseys were totally uncooperative. They did not want to help the police at all. So the two major theories within the family theory is that Patsy killed Jonbenet in a rage. A lot of people say that Jonbenet still wet the bed at 6 years old, which to be honest I don't think is crazy for a 6-year-old, but each family's different. So apparently Jonbenet's bedwetting infuriated Patsy so much that one night she struck her and killed her. I personally find this crazy unbelievable. Patsy had no history of aggression or violence towards anyone. There isn't really anything to believe that this is what happened, but this is a very widely thought theory, so I thought I'd mention it anyway. Maybe Patsy lived vicariously through her daughter. She wanted her daughter to become a successful pageant queen, and a bedwetting 6-year-old didn't match with Patsy's high standards that she held for her daughter. Burke Ramsey, Jonbenet's older brother, actually said in an interview many years later that their parents never touched them. I've actually got a direct quote from him. He said, "We didn't get spanked, nothing of the sort, nothing." So this wasn't a violent family. And talking of Burke, he's the second theory within the family member theory that I want to talk about. This is a theory that was actually mentioned on a TV show last year which I watched. It's called The Case of Jonbenet Ramsey. It was a documentary that was actually, I think, on CBS in America, but aired over here in the UK as well. And a documentary actually pointed towards Burke being the perpetrator of this crime. The basis behind this theory is that Burke was jealous of Jonbenet. She was a pageant queen, she got all the attention in the house. Jonbenet's autopsy actually revealed that she had been eating pineapple just before her death. So maybe her and Burke were sharing pineapple. There was a pineapple on the kitchen table when the police came, and maybe Burke didn't want Jonbenet to have any and struck her in a jealous rage. People say he had anger issues and him and his sister didn't get on and he attacked her. And people say that Patsy and John actually covered up. They'd already lost one daughter and they didn't want to lose their son as well. So they made it look like there'd been an intruder and Jonbenet had been taken. Now it was proven that Jonbenet was actually killed by the asphyxia, like the strangulation. She did have pretty serious other injuries as well. Maybe Burke had hit Jonbenet and then the parents had assumed she was dead and strangled her to cover up the fact that she had been beaten. Now, I don't know about you, I find it very hard to believe that a 9-year-old could do this. I know there are 9-year-olds that can and have done in the past. However, Burke had, again, no history of violent behaviour. He wasn't aggressive. He was interviewed by police several times and nothing really ever came up. He was interviewed by a child psychologist and the psychologist actually said that Burke was a pretty adjusted kid. He had a happy, normal, healthy family life. It just doesn't add up to me. And about that documentary that I mentioned earlier, Burke actually filed a lawsuit for $150 million in defamation charges. So he's pretty serious that it wasn't him that killed his little sister. Now, there are other theories within the family member theory. However, this video is long enough. I don't want to go on forever. As I always say, if you have any theories, please comment nicely down below. Let me know what you think. But it is worth remembering that nobody's been charged in this case. Nobody knows what happened. On July 9th, 2008, it was actually announced that the Ramsey family were no longer suspects in the case due to the DNA evidence that had been uncovered a few years before. Now, I want to end this video quickly. However, I just want to talk about a false confession that was done by a John Mark Carr. Now, John Mark Carr was 41 years old. He was an elementary teacher and he was arrested in Bangkok on the 15th of August 2006 after he falsely confessed to killing Jonbenet. Now, from what I remember, he was emailing back and forth with a journalist. This journalist was trying to gain his trust, and eventually it clearly works. John Carr admitted to killing Jonbenet. So of course the police got involved. They arrested him in Bangkok, and the police very quickly realised that this couldn't have been the guy that killed Jonbenet. He had no particular details about the case. Everything he said he could have easily read in the newspapers. Like, the police said they knew within minutes that this wasn't the guy they were looking for. There was nothing linking him to the scene whatsoever. His DNA didn't match the DNA found on Jonbenet's underwear. He just failed to provide any convincing details, and I'm going to end that here. I know I've probably missed out a lot of important facts, but like I always say, I can't talk forever. I hope you enjoyed this. If you did, give it a thumbs up. Let me know down below what other cases you want me to cover. Comment nice. My camera just died literally as I was doing the outro to that video. Typical. Anyway, comment nicely down below and let me know what you want to see next week. Thank you so much for watching. Bye.